All right. So it is 5:32. As the vice chair of the Building Reuse Committee, I'm calling our June 5th meeting to order. Uh, um, uh, it's being recorded for those folks who can't join. Things that discussed, we do have a quorum. So we have a quorum? Yeah, we have a quorum. So things discussed, we can vote, but and this is an open meeting. If you want, just raise your hand or speak up and you can chat. Okay, that was my formal thing. So, guys, here's where I'm at. We went through this thing. We had a $23 million proposal, and it got shot down right now. So I am going to share. What? Share. Okay. All right. So I'm going to share a screen. And can anybody see this?
I can see it. Yeah.
Okay. So basically what this is this is the, hey, oops. Oh, shoot. Am I still sharing?
Yeah.
Or am I not?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. I lost it. That's why. Okay. So basically what this is this is the beginning of what they gave us as the cost schematic design estimate. I always have trouble with these things. I'm not a trained professional, but this was this is the first line they gave us. The estimated construction cost for the town meeting house renovation, the Ritter Memorial renovation, and then the big one was the addition, site cost, and that whole thing came to 13 million, 3. Okay. So what I'm looking to do is to kind of go around the room and get people's sentiments as to if you feel there's a way forward that something can get passed. And if that is the case, how would you like to see this thing, see the framework of, so that we can present it to the Board of Selectmen? Does that work for everybody?
Sure.
Okay. I mean, I don't know what else we can discuss at this point. The plan is the original plan is kind of dead in a way. I don't see the 23 million as this town having the sentiment to spend 23 million on this project. So do we give up, or do you think we have a way of doing a project that would prepare this town for the future without and making it actually fiscally, a fiscally viable product to do? So, Greg, I know you have to go quickest, so I'm going to ask for your opinions, your thoughts first. I'm not going to say opinions, but your thoughts first.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, guys. Hopefully, I don't know if you can hear the noise here or not, but it's I'm trying to be in a quiet area.
No problem. You're perfect.
A couple things, I guess. I think I'm just going to give you my thoughts as they're coming on my head. I feel like, and I don't want this to be construed like I'm passing blame, but I think the fact of the matter is we didn't do, I'll put it this way, we didn't do as much public outreach as we should have. I don't think we did really any public outreach other than invite people to our meetings, and we didn't get public forums, so we didn't get those kind of things pulled together. So I think that we, that was probably a lesson learned. I don't know that it's necessarily a lesson learned. It's just a point. I think we all knew it. None of us had any time to do it. I think was the issue. So there's that. I think that it didn't pass a town meeting by whatever 6 votes or whatever it was. There was more support for it than I thought there was going to be quite honest with you, by a pretty good margin. I really didn't even think we were going to get a majority, and we got a majority. We just didn't get a 2/3 majority. I think that we should schedule a meeting with the select board and ask them what they would like us to do. I don't think we have any choice. I think our options are, I think we have two options, personally. Maybe there's a third, but I think it's we pursue the plan as it is and give it another go at town meeting or not. We don't have any money to do anything else, really. I mean, we can sit here and brainstorm and try to come up with another plan. I mean, quite frankly, I'm not really interested in doing that personally. If that's what we're going to do, I'm just going to say, so I'm not going to go through this process with another whole plan personally. If that's what the board wants, if that's what the select board wants to do, that's fine, but I'm not going to stick around for it. I got a little life left in me if we want to try to rejuvenate the plan that we have. See if we can do a proper public outreach campaign over the next, 4 to 6 months before fall town meeting and give another crack. The people I talk to, I believe we should do that. I think that's probably the sentiment of at least a few of those select board members. So I think we should probably huddle with the select board, seeing as how they're our charging board. They're the board we report to, so to speak, and see what they want us to do. But I guess that's my thought.
Okay. No, like I say, that's fine. So you're, the plan as is you feel that proper outreach, it might be doable.
Well, I don't think we did the work, right? I don't think we did it any service. I've been a pretty vocal proponent of the plan. I'm still a proponent of the plan. I think it's a good plan. I don't think it's that much money, for what we're doing. And it solves a lot of problems in a way that is doable. And I think we should hit the streets with it and see if we can properly advertise it, so to speak, and evangelize it, if you will. And at the end of the day, the town might say no again, but I just don't think we gave it the chance that it's deserved.
Okay. No, Greg, I appreciate your thoughts. And that's really what I'm here, is more to gather thoughts and things like that. Right. We were at this as a group for a long time. Some of us real long time. And it's just a matter of understanding how the group feels about moving forward more than anything else.
Yeah. And again, you're not going to hurt my feelings if people disagree, but those are my thoughts. So.
Okay. All right. Brian, I'm going to pass the baton to you. What your thoughts are now in your new position, what your thoughts are.
Yes, I've been with this committee since 2019, since we started. I want to thank you, Dave, for setting up the meeting too. I'm hoping for the next meeting we can add in approved minutes, because we do have some minutes, and then we'll approve this meeting.
Oh, yeah.
Too. And then also, I think because we lost Michael Ray, we also have Laura. I think it would be good to add to the agenda a reorg too.
Agree 100%. By the way, I agree 100%. This was more to see if we were having a next meeting. In a way. Okay.
In regards, I agree with a lot of what Greg said. I think really it is kind of two plans, and maybe that is up to the select board to decide how to proceed, whether to proceed as planned, whether it's a fall town meeting article on pretty much the same thing, or even a spring town meeting, or I think the other option two is table it. I think there's a lot of things going on, especially talk about an override article, whether likely in the spring town meeting. So maybe it's tabling this project because a lot of people spoke out of, we have a lot of concerns with the schools and the fire department and the budget, and we can't spend all this money if we can't even handle the current year budget. And I thought, looking at even what you showed here up on the screen, the town meeting house renovations and the Ritter Memorial renovations, those could potentially fit under the capital plan over several years. So maybe it's tabling, the second option is tabling this, taking care of a lot of the projects as much as we can through capital planning. Like, my first thought was the ADA compliance at the town hall. We could actually pave that front so it's a ramp up instead of the stair. things like that, where you might actually be able to do some things to improve upon. Um, some of the concerns that I wrote down too from the public was the cost concerns, that the price tag was too high. My concern is, okay, maybe that's still going to be the case in the fall. A smaller scale renovation is going to be harder with the new attachment, with, again, how Greg stated that we don't have any more money to do a new design. So I think it comes down to that second option of maybe it's just capital plan projects and no extra building. I do agree with Greg too that there was a lot of community distrust, that they felt we didn't do enough outreach, that this was all new, even though we had all these meetings. We didn't do enough community outreach. So that's another option too. I would agree with that we got to keep reaching out. We did have the Facebook posts of the slides, but I think that also just got people more fired up that they didn't want to spend $20+ million on a project. There was community feedback on needs for alternatives. And then just hitting the most pressing needs of the buildings. Rebuilding trust, coordinating with other town committees. And the other concern I had too was, and I get maybe this is more of a select board discussion too, but the concern that Turkey Hill building or the primary school building components of this could come up too, where Turkey Hill is going to be needed to be either renovated or built new, and that putting that building in place as another option, maybe that makes more sense to wait. And that's why maybe it's tabling it. Those are my thoughts.
Okay, I appreciate it. All right, Tony, I'm going to pass it over to you.
Well, I think that taking the same thing back to the voters is going to produce the same result. And I want to see something happen. And I think that I think even if we did the additional outreach, we're going to have the same result. Mainly because there are so many pressing financial issues that the town's facing right now. And while these projects are debt excluded, they still add to people's tax bills, and everyone pretty much, I think, realizes that there's going to be an override vote and that their taxes are going to go up with that. And that with a significant capital project like this one, their taxes are going to go up again. And I think that what we have to do is, lay out a plan for how we're going to do capital projects that the town, debt excluded capital projects in the town that make sense given our day-to-day needs. After the vote, after the town meeting vote, I sent a note to the town manager and basically said, what needs to happen is that this committee or whoever the select board puts in charge sits down and evaluates all of the debt excluded capital projects that have been discussed and are currently on the table, and prioritize those and figure out how much money can the town take on and meet those priorities. How much debt can the town take on and meet those priorities? And I came up with my own little mini list. And I think this is a starting point for how we move forward, because I really believe, based on what the town meeting vote was, yeah, it was close, but what the town election vote was, it wasn't close. In terms of votes for versus votes against. And that's really a critical piece for us to understand, is that the voters didn't want to pay for a $23 million project. In my note to Jennifer, I said, these are Tony Scalambrini's observations of what capital projects people are talking about. We had two of them at the town meeting in May. One was Marshall Park, and then, of course, the town hall project. But now we know, thank God we now know that it's probably going to be more effective for the town to renovate Turkey Hill versus building a brand new school building. And while that decision hasn't been made, now's the time to start talking about that approach. There's going to be probably a debt excluded project to fix the primary school entryway, because it's really not a safe entryway into that complex. And then there's other capital improvement projects like dealing with the excess real estate that we have at TC Passios, like the PAC. And I think that, what we never did was that we never did as a committee. We talked about the buildings, but we didn't talk about the projects. We didn't talk about a park project. We didn't talk about a school project. We talked about a town hall project that kind of laid over against multiple buildings, like Town Hall, like Ritter, like Brooks, like TC Passios, because they had components of uh, of town administrative functions that we were looking at. And I think that what we should do, and this is my 2 cents, is that, what the town really needs to do, what the select board, needs to do is to charge someone with coming up with that prioritized list of debt excluded capital projects and say, we got to start knocking these off. Can't knock them off all at one time without having a huge giant increase for taxes. But maybe we can look and figure out a path forward for how to do these debt excluded projects in a way that makes sense. I'd like to see the Marshall Park project. I want to see this project because I think that both Ritter and Town Hall, they need some work. Fortunately, we got new roofs on we got good roofs on both of these buildings now, and we got, we made some good exterior changes to Ritter, that will give that building some life. But we need to make sure that we continue to focus on that. The last thing I'll say is that we were not disciplined. Hey, I don't want to this make sound as a criticism of the previous TC Passios reuse committee, but they were not disciplined. They looked at all the square footage and then they put together all these things. And then the next thing you know, we had a $35 million project. When I joined this committee, as when it became not the TC Passios Reuse Committee, but the Lunenburg Municipal Building Design Committee in January 2022, it was about town administrative functions. And I think that we really need to say that's a project that needs to be given priority. And we need to demonstrate to the voters that we've looked at the other priority projects like Marshall, like Turkey Hill, like the primary school, like the PAC, and like TC Passios as a capital project, and that we rank those priorities correctly. I feel sorry for the town manager, our new town manager, because I really do think that she should have a consolidated administrative facility. And I think that we could have done that with this project had we stayed disciplined. Adding the PAC. Let me go back. In September 2024, at our meeting in September 2024, if you go back and look at those meeting minutes, we were talking about a 4,000 square foot addition to make that consolidated town function work. And we ended up with a 14,400 square foot addition. There's a lot of reasons why that happened. But that was a gigantic disconnect from where we were. And had we said and stayed true to that 4,000 square foot addition, this project would have been approved at town meeting and would have been approved at town election. That's where I think that was clear evidence of a lack of discipline. And then adding PAC after we had gone through 2 iterations of designs was another demonstration of a lack of discipline. You just can't do that and come up with a project that people will have confidence in and want to vote for. That's my 2 cents.
All right. Appreciate it, Tony. Okay. Tom, your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't disagree with most of what was been said. I would say that, first of all, we're created by the select board. And I do agree that we should go back to the select board and, have a discussion with them on what they think and what we think we should be doing. And I think that would be the first step to figure out what is the next step. I agree with Tony in that all these things are related, whether it's the Turkey Hill renovations, the Town Hall, the Ritter, and the parks. They're all related because they're all debt exclusion kind of things, and we have limits on that. We did I know Chris in the finance department, in the finance committee, did some quick numbers and said we'd be fine. But, to do that all and then to present it, maybe not for a vote, but to present it to the town as this is our plan. And it's a long-term plan. This is maybe what we should maybe suggest to the select board, that it be like, okay, we're going to do these things over the next X number of years. And these are what the, we don't have the exact numbers, but these are what we should be doing. So I think, to me, is first to get the select board's input. Does any renovations of Ritter and Town Hall have to include PAC, have to be combined to the school and the town functions? If that's still the case, then okay, I think that's something, it's going to make it harder for us to get approved. I don't think, Tony said we were lack of discipline. I think we were told that PAC and ACE and the school functions had to be in that building. We were, or at least, had to be considered. So that's what caused the numbers to move up. So from my view, I think talking to the select board, telling them about the realistic things that we could do to get the number down, and also to maybe include it with a long-term plan for many projects, so that the town would feel more comfortable about, okay, so they're going to do this, then they're going to do that, then they're going to do this. And that all makes sense. So I think that's what we need to do to build confidence in the community. I don't know how many people are watching these things. I think that people that go to town meeting are more active than other people, but a lot of them, they were going like, hey, this is the first time we've heard about it. Well, it's been talked about for a year and a half. And if you haven't heard about it, it's because probably you were busy doing other things. And I think that's always going to be the case. So I think we got to make it something that we can get through, get approved. I don't know how, but to get it at town meeting, to get it approved, and then obviously at the ballot.
Okay, thank you. Laura, it looks like you're standing still now, so I'll give you a shot. I know you weren't part of the whole thing earlier. Welcome to the committee. And, really more of my feeling right now is the sentiments of the school committee of, should the project still be the same?
So we're having a new superintendent come in July 1st.
Yeah.
I need to know what she says and what she thinks. So I'm not up to speed on that. I think a lot of the failure of the vote to pass, because it was so close at town meeting and then so far at the polls, the people at town meeting are generally a little more informed about what's going on. That's why they're at town meeting. So I think we had a disconnect in outreach and marketing as far as selling the project. I would be open to going for it again, but if it was an ideal world, I would take 18 months so that we're not going up against an override. So do November 2026 debt exclusion. And I would spend the next 18 months doing outreach groups, going to the senior center, getting people's opinions, asking them for ideas. And they're going to tell us, why didn't you consider Passios? And we're going to do the outreach and explain why and take in input, and then ideally maybe go back to the architect with a little bit more money, redesign it slightly so it looks a little different, which I know from watching your meetings, they can make the outside look very different. And the inside stays the same. And then go back and try again with a slightly different plan that takes in more input, so that citizens feel like they have a little more buy-in in the process. I also would very much like to, in the November town meeting, do a poll, ask the citizens at town meeting, or figure out an outreach way to ask citizens in town what their direction is, because there hasn't been from what I can see, much input there. We keep asking the select board what they want, and I'm not sure they always know, and the select board make up changes. But I think if we maybe ask the citizens what they want, we can follow that direction a little better. Because I don't think there's been enough citizen input, which would increase the buy-in.
Okay. All right. Excellent. Thank you. Really appreciate your input there. Okay.
Okay,
So-
I gotta run though. I'm gonna go into the awards now.
All right. No problem. Thank you. I appreciate you. I didn't, if you should have said that earlier, I would have let you go a lot sooner.
Oh, no, it's okay. If you want to give me a call tomorrow and fill me in. Okay.
No
Bye.
problem.
I
Okay.
have to run too here, Dave, so I don't know if you're gonna lose a quorum, I think, without.
I planned no vote tonight, so that's
Okay.
why I wasn't
All right.
worried about it. So my
Okay.
quickie 2 cents on my side is I agree with the outreach. I agree with the feature creep. I believe that, we basically got told, this is in this building, put it in there. And, at the cost of new construction, that feature creep became ridiculous in a lot of respects. It took a project that was somewhat viable and made it unattainable type of thing. I believe that we're at a point where we just need to say, like to PAC, this is the square feet you're getting. That's it. And this is where it is. Figure it out type of thing. Do they need 1,200 square feet? I don't know. And things of that. But I do believe that and by the way, as far as the ballot, the town ballot, I personally didn't even bother to turn the ballot over because, to me, both items on the back were dead because they didn't make it through town meeting. And I felt that if it didn't make it through town meeting, they weren't going to pass on the ballot. What did what did matter on the ballot type of thing on that. But I do believe in the idea that we need to go back to the board. We need to go to the board of selectmen, and there needs to be a holistic look at this town of everything that needs to get done, everything that should get done, and prioritize and get it done. So, when we do a debt exclusion, we're not doing a debt exclusion for one building. We're doing a debt exclusion for whether it's a 3-year plan, 5-year plan, or 10-year plan to do all of these things. Because I do, one of the things I have in this town is like Marshall Park. Marshall Park was the only thing that somebody with no kids between the age of 25 and 65 have in this town. There is nothing else that this town really has. And it's a shame that, going around that park, it's not set up for that. It's not set up for anybody to enjoy it except to go see a ball game. And that's about it. So I do believe in the projects, but I believe that there needed to be a better outreach and that there needed to be more time needs to be taken. I don't have any problem with, I do agree there's a new superintendent coming in. Maybe the new superintendent says, I don't want I want administrations in the building. I don't want it to be, a quarter mile away. If that's the case, and that's going to make them happy, I'd rather see that happen and things of that sort. So that's kind of my 2 cents in this whole thing. I believe that, maybe early July, getting a meeting with the Board of Selectmen, or sometime in July, getting a meeting with the Board of Selectmen, sitting down and kind of talking about some of the things we've talked about would be very beneficial, mainly coming to the Board of Selectmen with an idea of these are all the projects that we see that need to be looked at. And, do we now look at the viability of all of these projects? The renovation cost was not that high.
They were a bargain.
Exactly. The new building cost is asinine. And I'm trying to figure out why a new building costs that much compared to a renovation of a 100-year-old, of a old building that was never built well to begin with in the first place.
It's simple, Dave. 40% of your cost is just to close in a building. And the town hall in Ritter, they're closed in, so
Oh,
you
okay.
save 40% by doing that. Whereas, and the other way to look at it is that you got to come up with 40% more money for the new stuff because it's not there.
Right, right. And that's the whole thing. Looking at the thing, like the things for me were the facade of Ritter should be the old Ritter. I really love that facade. That's the historical part of Lunenburg. That was you walked in and it was this grand building. And yes, you were walking into the second floor of it, if you want to call it that. But there should be a way that whatever the addition is, whatever something is, we can make it all the right levels, not a mishmash of different things. We're not building a split level ranch, split level ranch anymore. We need to build a building. And I think that split levels adds cost when it comes to ramps, ADA, and everything else that shouldn't have to be in there. But that's kind of my 2 cents, guys, in this whole thing.
What's our next step? Should we go back to the select board, talk to
Oh.
them? Is that, you think?
So what I'm looking to try to do is I'd like to have a meeting, in early July, so that we can outline what we want to talk to the select board about. Just, here's what we see as the projects. Here's what we want, what we believe should be the next steps. Here's kind of the timeline and go from there. Does that make sense to folks?
Yeah, that works. I think, yeah, just reaching out to
Sure, yeah.
Caesar. Dave, if you want to reach out to Caesar and kind of bounce that idea too around to him and see what timeline they're looking at for us to meet with them.
Brian, I know that Glenn McLeod he has a great interest in this, where these projects go. I've met with him a couple of times now.
I think all the select board, I think they're
Yeah.
gonna have a good discussion on this too. So
Yeah, he's in
looking
Scotland this
to
week.
keep it moving. Is I think
Yeah.
the key, right?
I know he wants to chat with you about this, so.
Yeah.
But it's got to come from the select board, and hopefully the select board. I had conversations independent during the heavy part of the design with both with two of the actually three of the select board members, and I think there was less. We've kind of characterized as our project creep as being the result of the select board. I think maybe one of the select board was heavily involved in that project creep. But the other two that I spoke to, they were not. And so we have a whole different set of players, at the table. And I think that is, we got to get some good, concise direction from the select board. And then we need to ask them, to stay true to the direction that they give us. They can tell us to go do 50 different things, but at the end of the day, the select board has to understand the consequences of then increasing that 50 different things to 100 different things. That won't work. And I don't want to be a part of a committee that has to deal with that again either. Going back to Greg Roy's comments, I want to see something get done, but you can't change the goal line in the process and then expect to have success based on the planning that's been done. Hey, I want to make one comment. I was in Ohio for my mother-in-law's 93rd birthday today. I came back today. But there's a movement in Ohio that's going to be successful. They're getting rid of property taxes in the state. They're going to, it's a ballot initiative. They're in the process right now of procuring the necessary ballot count or signature count to be on the ballot. And it's going to change the business in Ohio. And like local government is going to become basically irrelevant. And one of the drivers behind the getting rid of property taxes in Ohio is they want to see towns and school districts and everything that's local get more consolidated and more efficient. And the taxpayers are going to do that. Now, I don't agree at all with the approach because basically what it means is that now your level of control is no longer at the local level. It'll be in Columbus in the case of Ohio. But that's also a driver right now in Florida. And we need to be very efficient and as a local municipality to keep those kinds of things from happening in the state of Massachusetts. I don't think it would, But I'm here to tell you, that's going to take place in Ohio. There, you know, one of the things, you know, listening to the conversations of all the friends and family, you know, around my mother-in-law's 93rd birthday, they're all for it. You know, they're like, yeah, I like this. We're going to do that. And trust me, when the ballot happens in November, we're going to see no property taxes in the state of Ohio. It's like that in Florida too. They're heading in the same direction.
Yeah. So Tony, it's interesting if you look at that, because the fact of the matter is, out of this 23 million, probably a good 8 million of that is because of prevailing wage. You know, right? Because it's a state project, you got to pay them that way. I don't know, 8 million, maybe that's a high number, but I'd say it's
It is a high number, Dave.
all right. So let's
Yeah.
say, I'll say 5 million is because of what prevailing wage will cause with this thing. You know, I don't believe that it should be $60 an hour for a painter to paint a room type of, or it's actually more than that. It's up to $80. But the fact of the matter is, that's what's really killing some of these projects, and towns can't afford it. Oh, it was an interesting you know, it's the idea that some of this could be done by townspeople donations, but you can't do that with the state project.
Yeah,
And-
those are the kinds of things that won't go away if you got rid of property taxes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
That's the irony of that. You mean, I think that, you know, everybody wants, they want to be their own they want their destiny to be in their own hands. And I think that, you know, it's a dance with the devil that the voters in Ohio are going to have. You know, they're going to give up that control to state legislators who are sitting in Columbus versus sitting in Dayton or Xenia, Ohio, where I was. You know, and I think that they won't be happy with those consequences. But I think that, you know, the message that's being delivered is that people want to stay in their houses and feel like they can't because they're being priced out by taxes. And that's what we deal with too. You know, I think that that's
Right.
why it's really critical for us to make a great case for someone who's a senior. You know, Dave, your comment about Marshall Park is right on the money. You know, we got to give those people that don't have kids in school, we have to give them a reason for wanting to pay taxes. And Marshall Park is a good reason for paying taxes. You know, but I think that we can't do this piecemeal. You know, we got, like, one of the things that I did say to the town manager in my memo to her, and I'm willing to share that memo with anybody that wants it, just send me an email, is that what we ought to do in September or at special town meeting in November is to tell the town, here are the priorities for capital projects. You know, Carter Terenzini, you know, he kept saying to me in the conversations I had with him about this project, Tony, he goes, you guys need to come up with an overall master plan for, you know, for your capital projects, and then just start to knock them off, you know. And I think that would be a great thing for us to talk about with the voters at town meeting, a special town meeting, to say, here's the priorities. Which one of these do you want us to do first, and second, and third? And oh, by the way, there will be some overlap in debt exclusion percentages. But then we can then take that. Now, the one thing that Laura said, I like surveys, but only if they're scientific surveys. You know, surveys like what we've done with the Master Plan Steering Committee, those aren't scientific surveys. It's just basically, well, what would you like to do? What I'd like to do is come up with a great set of questions about our project priorities, and then scientifically test those to come up with a result that says the town would support this project with this, the town would support that project with this kind of cost. And that's not expensive to do. Everyone thinks that that kind of scientific survey is expensive, but it's really not. You can get that done for less than 10 grand for the size of sample that we would have for Lunenburg. So I think that it would be very valuable for us to have that conversation in a special town meeting in November. And then, you know, we could have a warrant in November that says, once we have these priorities established by vote, you know, at the town meeting, and then the next warrant is, now you're going to appropriate another couple $100,000 for us to go hire an architect to start working on priority number one.
Okay, appreciate it, Tony, and I do agree. It's just I think we need a better plan for the voters. Jay, I see you joined us late. I haven't had a chance. If you want to just kind of introduce, and is there any special reason why you wanted to join with us?
Hey, Dave, I got to sign off. I'm
All
sorry.
right, thanks, Greg. Enjoy it.
Okay. See
Okay.
you later, guys.
Well, you just want to listen, Jay.
You're on mute.
Yeah,
Trying to figure out how to turn my speaker on.
okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we
Yes.
can. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, just a member of the finance committee. I've just been following, your committee. So I'm just listening in to see what's going on.
Okay. Okay, cool. All right. So,
We
yeah,
Our quorum
Jay.
too.
we still got a quorum?
No, I think we lost our quorum.
We lost our quorum. So like I said, I wasn't gonna vote, so I'm okay. Just as a quickie recap, it sounds like I will call for a meeting beginning of July. Obviously not the week of July, well, sometime early July. I'll look to get on the BOS, talk to Caesar, get on the BOS agenda for later in July. And the idea would be is to kind of put our heads together, brainstorm, look at the makeup of what this committee is chartered to do, but mainly realizing that a holistic look at this town. In fact, it's actually really humorous, but I think it was Dave Passios was telling me the 1969 capital plan for the town of Lunenburg had a whole beachfront park at Whalen Lake, including basketball courts, parking, swing sets, increasing the size of town beach by 5 times larger and everything like that. And it was going to be $100,000 and the town rejected it. Now think today what that would have been worth to this town to have a beautiful park right there on Whalen Lake versus, what we have for town beach type of thing. But, so I do believe we need to do something. And this is a prime time, this town needs to move to the 21st century, to say the least, before it becomes the 22nd century. And it would be great to have some kind of plan moving forward during our 250th anniversary celebration type of thing. Okay. That's everything for me. Any comments from anybody?
Dave, thanks for getting us organized.
My
Yeah,
pleasure.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you,
My
Dave.
pleasure.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to try to throw together some notes, but Brian, it'll definitely be for July meeting. I'll get the meeting notes. I'll talk to the members that didn't make it, see their sentiments about whether they're moving forward or not, and we can talk about things at that point too.
Yeah. Sounds
All
good.
right.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Bye.
Take care, guys. Enjoy.
Bye-bye.
Have a great evening.
You too.
All right. Bye-bye.